Hello everyone, my name is Arit and you're watching Untold Facts. Today we're taking a look at the details, specifically details around people who experience human rights violations simply because they are thought to be different. We'll take a look at the data, we'll check out the trends and present you a critical analysis of this underreported reality.
We've had about 105 different things.
You know, you may come out to your friends and to your family, but you may still not have come out to yourself.
You don't hold the world an explanation for being who you are.
LGBT rights are human rights. Now, somebody called me and said, they said I look gay. I said, what does gay look like?
Ability to be human, access to care, access to housing,
Education.
yes.
There is an agenda.
You can continue to stay at your own battle. You do not need any passport.
I'm here with Benga Austen Oladapo, and he's the Executive Director of the Initiative for the Advancement for Humanity. They're a human rights organization based in Port Harcourt. He's also a legal practitioner, and he's going to give us a perspective, a very critical perspective on this it's a very interesting situation. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. Now, Benga, or would you prefer Austen?
Whichever.
Whichever. Let's do Benga. We have people who are getting arrested, getting harassed simply because they look different. So this isn't even really only an LGBT conversation, is it?
Yes, it is. It's very worrisome because actually a lot of persons get victimized, go through all manner of violence based on certain reasons. These reasons are actually, they may be real or they may be as a result of people's perceptions of whom these persons represent. So you see some persons being attacked based either on their real or their perceived orientation. When people see somebody who is gender non-conforming, they immediately jump to the conclusion that because he's gender non-conforming, because he's different from them, therefore he falls into the category of LGBT persons. And then they consider them a pariah, and then they subject them to all manner of trauma, attack, victimizations, violence, and you name it.
How bad is this situation?
It's very terrible. It's very devastating. It's highly reprehensible and condemnable. I recall vividly the case of one young man. I would not want to mention his name, though he's now late.
Oh dear.
This young man was moving with his group of friends in Port Harcourt. And then a group of young men saw him and they became curious that why is this young man walking like a woman? And that was enough crime for them to go after him. They attacked him with cudgels.
Oh my goodness.
Gave him hits on his head, and he managed to escape them together with his friends. On reaching home, he explained his ordeal to his mom, went into the bathroom, had his bath, prepared what the family was to eat. The moment he served the meal, he slumped. They immediately rushed him to Braithwaite Memorial Hospital, BMH, Port Harcourt. On reaching there, they discovered that he had brain concussion. So immediately they referred him to the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital. On reaching there, the young man could not make it. He died as a result of people's perception of him, not because he had committed any offense whatsoever. And the mother, when she heard of this, the mother said, "This is my favorite child. This is my best child. I have lost my best child." She didn't make it for 2 years. She died within the space of 2 years.
Oh wow. That's heartbreaking, and that's again one example of how something that to those people who attacked him, it was random, but yet it had such far-reaching implications on this entire family. So what makes people think it is okay for them to attack somebody else? Why are people so confident and comfortable to carry out acts of violence against another person? Why don't they have any fear?
There are several factors that are responsible for this. first and foremost is ignorance, low level of perception. We have illiteracy. Religious dogmas also accounts for this. Socio-cultural perceptions about certain issues accounts for it. And the worst of it all are discriminatory legislations. This particular incident I refer to actually happened at the wake of the passage of the SSMPA Act. So it tended to heighten homophobia and attack on persons based on their real or perceived sexual orientation.
And the police or lawyers, in this situation now, could this young man's mother have gone to the police and found anybody who would be willing to take up the case? To what extent does the police and the organizations, the agencies whose responsibilities it is to protect citizens, to what extent can people find redress when things like this happen?
To a very large extent, the law enforcement agents and most agencies abhor violence.
Okay.
They do not encourage violence against anybody for any reason whatsoever. But then we have our issues with the police. Our police are equally complicit in this. They also invade people's privacy. They arrest people indiscriminately. They discriminate against people. Even when some persons come up with complaints and they are asked to go to the police station, on reaching the police stations, the police will ask them why they are effeminate. And that is enough justification for them to be discriminated and not to be attended to. At times, on instances that borders on setup and blackmail, the moment an effeminate person gets to the police station, because the person is effeminate, is enough for them to pass judgment against the person, and then they discriminate against the person. They may not want to listen to the person, and then the assailants feel empowered and may want to continue further.
So it's even as if, okay, the police isn't going to do anything, or the police is in support. So these people, that's one more push. That's more validation of their acts of violence.
Basically from state actors who are saddled with the responsibility of protecting lives and properties. When these people go to the police and they discover that the police would equally lean on their own side of homophobia, of discrimination, of ill treatment, of violence, some of them would say, why you dey waka like woman? It good as them beat you well. When people who do not have any form of knowledge, any form of training on how to respect and protect the rights of people hear this, they feel empowered. They feel reinvigorated to continue to abuse and to violate other persons. So the police, I think, are also complicit in this.
Wow, that's very troubling, because then it almost seems as if there's nowhere to go.
Actually, there is nowhere to go because of the involvement of the police in several human rights violations on persons based on their real or perceived sexual orientations. I'll give a vivid example of the young men, the 42 young men who were arrested in Lagos.
Yes.
They were actually arrested because they were having a cohort session. They were having a session for HIV testing and counseling.
I see. And
then rounded up in the process. They were not rounded up because they were found doing anything indiscriminate. That was enough reasons for them to be rounded up. Now, in civilized climes, upon getting there, the police is expected to conduct their own preliminary investigations to find out if that particular session should be usurped or not. But that was not done. They were immediately rounded up. The press did not help matters. They went public with the data, the names of these young men, tagged them all manner of names, And they eventually found themselves in courts. So that's the gory detail of what people face every day, either as a result of their real or their perceived orientation.
Do we have details like numbers? Can you give me an idea of some of the numbers we're talking about?
Yes. Beginning from 2014, the numbers went high. There are several organizations in Nigeria who attend to persons based on certain factors, certain indices that has been recognized globally and recognized by the federal government of Nigeria. They address these people as key populations.
Okay.
Now, we discovered that in 2014, immediately upon the passage of the SSMPA Act, most persons went underground. They stopped accessing services. They became unreachable. There was so much attack on them, homophobia set up, unlawful arrest, detention, forceful eviction, even deaths. The numbers before 2014 was minimal.
Really?
But after 2014, on daily basis, you hear all manner of complaints, all manner of reports against persons based on their real or perceived orientation. Now, even if you have issues with your neighbor, most times they consider it very tenable reasons to walk up to the police or walk up to the vigilante non-state actors and tag the person LGBT just because they want to prove a point. And most times, the moment they hear this, people don't even ask questions. They jump to conclusions with or without any evidence, and then they attack and violate these people. In Rivers State, we had an alarming number. Likewise, in Lagos State, the number was very, very alarming.
And Lagos is a place that you would consider to be
hobnob of all manner of activities. Is very cosmopolitan.
Yes.
So there was so much incidences of violations in Lagos State, and likewise in the northern part of the country. There were so much reports against persons based on their real and perceived sexual orientation. Now, the most disturbing part of this is that as a result of this trend of assaulting people, of violating people based on real or perceived orientations, everybody is susceptible to attack. Anybody can be violated. Anything can happen to you. Somebody can just tag you gay, and then the person will meet his woes and travails. Anything can happen to the person, ranging from mob attack, mob action. They can even maim the person to death. They subject the person to all manner of stigma and discrimination that most times leads to very serious psychological trauma that may result in death and even suicide. So the effects of all these are far-reaching. The implications are very grave. And it's a very serious cause for concern. And that ought to be addressed. Because anybody can fall victim to this with the way things are going in this country.
You know, discrimination on its own, human rights violations on its own, those are already grievous acts against people. But when you now realize that something like this can become a tool, a vendetta, and that it validates people's justification to carry out acts of violence, it becomes even more frightening. And you said something when you talked about the boys who were arrested. You said the press, also played a part. So what does the press need to be doing to play a part in mitigating this situation?
I think they should cease their negative reportage. They should conduct research extensively before they embark on any reportage. If any society that is not well informed is deformed, and every society counts on the press plays a very pivotal role in influencing the public, the society, and the entire country at large. When the press begins to engage in junk journalism, wrong reportage, They fuel stigma and discrimination. They fuel violence. And then this violence can befall anybody. Anybody whatsoever. It's just like a person who throws stones into the marketplace. You don't know who is going to be whom is going to hit.
Yes.
It can hit anybody. It can hit somebody related to you. It can hit anybody whatsoever. So would admonish them, would prevail on them, would urge them to ensure that before they report, they should conduct their investigations properly and report positively in the overall interest of the public. The press serve the public. They should consider the public in whatever reports they are making. And above all, the essence of human rights is the protection of minorities in society.
Yes.
Human rights is not about the rights of the majority. We talk about the vulnerable in the society, people who are susceptible to attack, people who are considered weak, people who are considered minority. The essence of human rights is to ensure that the rights of these people are protected.
Yes.
The rights of these persons are protected.
Yes.
That is why there is a very huge clamor for the protection of women's rights in the Nigerian context, because women are largely marginalized. And likewise, we hear of minority tribes and the rest of it, clamoring.
So something that is cutting
across all strata. Likewise, persons who are considered sexual minorities.
Yes.
We have this culture of heteronormativity, that those who are the heteronormative values should prevail and should clamp down on certain kind of sexual preferences that does not align with that of the majority.
And
this should not be so.
Yeah.
A lot of persons will be endangered. It
Yes.
should not be so. The vulnerable in the society, the minorities in the society ought to be protected.
Yes.
They should be the ones that human rights should tilt after. They should not be thrown out there. They should not be exposed to attack because of the fact that they are considered minor.
Now, Benga, you've given us some very harrowing examples, and you've also given us an idea of the trends. Do you have any numbers for us?
Yes, there are numbers. Actually, as a result of the heightening violations against persons based on their real and perceived sexual orientation, the Initiative for Equal Rights partnered with several organizations in Nigeria to report and collate these violations.
Okay.
In 2016, as a result of the heightening violations in the country,
Yes.
several organizations led by the Initiative for Equal Rights came together to document and collate these reports so that we can actually transmit the reports to relevant agencies for their consideration. Let them know what is actually happening in the country. In Akwa Ibom State, there was 1 violation.
Okay.
In Bayelsa State, only 2 violations were reported.
Okay.
In Edo State, 5 violations were reported. In Delta State, 4 violations were reported. In River State, 40 violations were reported. In Abuja, 19 violations were reported. In Benue, Nasarawa, and Plateau States, 1 violation each was reported. In Abia and Anambra States, 5 violations were reported. In Ebonyi State, 2 violations were reported. In Enugu State, 16 violations were reported.
The numbers for rivers are very high. Very high.
That's not actually the case.
Okay.
The numbers are high because of the systems and mechanisms for reporting and documentation of human rights abuses in River State. They have a very viable organization in River State with a lot of legal practitioners.
So it's
whom
not
people
as
run
if it's
to.
lower elsewhere.
That is the point. It's not that
Interesting.
it is lower elsewhere. For example, you have cases like Akwa Ibom, Ebonyi, where you have just 1 violation, 2 violations each. The reason is that even when they are violated, they don't even know where to run to.
go.
So most of the violations go unreported. In states where you see very minimal reports, violations, it's because even when they are violated, they don't know where to run to. But in places like Lagos State, River State, where people know that when they are violated, they have people they can run to come to their aid, you see that these figures go very high.
I see. Now, you mentioned that the numbers have been increasing since. Do you have any numbers for 2017?
Yes, in 2017, I will just mention 2 states.
Okay.
For example, in River State, the numbers increased from 40 to 96 in 2017.
Wow.
And in Lagos State, 34 violations were recorded.
Oh, wow.
And totally, in 2017, 247 violations were recorded.
Wow.
The states with the least violations were Ebonyi, Ondo, and Jigawa states. And the reason being that these states may not have any mechanisms for documentations and reporting of violations based on real or perceived sexual orientation.
So there is still a lot that needs to be done.
Exactly.
But at the individual level, people who have their rights violated, what can they do? Where can they go?
A lot of things can be done.
Okay.
Because at the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, Resolution 275 has been passed.
Okay.
That nobody has any right whatsoever to met out violence on anyone.
Okay.
The resolution speaks strictly against violence. That violence is condemned on any ground whatsoever.
Okay.
Whether it's on grounds of real or perceived sexual orientation,
Okay.
it is not validated. They have a lot of places they can go to. They can go to the National Human Rights Commission.
Okay.
They can go to the Office of the Public Defender. It is
Okay.
in all ministries of justices in Nigeria.
Okay.
They can go to several organizations like the Initiative for Equal Rights,
Okay.
based in Lagos. They can go to the Initiative for Advancement of Humanity, based in Port Harcourt.
Yes.
They can go to the International Center for the Protection on Access to Rights and Health, based in Abuja. There are several organizations
And
that
if they don't-
provide services
Yes.
specifically for these reasons.
And if they don't know where to go in their state, then they can reach out to one of these other ones you've mentioned.
Exactly.
that
They
has
can
to
reach
be
out
done.
to the National Human Rights Commission.
Okay.
They can go to the Ministry of Justice in their states, and they will be attended to. So that's it.
Venga.
They can equally go to the police. The police is saddled with the duty to protect the lives and property of every citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If the police refuses to act, they can take it up, do a petition to the Commissioner of Police. If there is no action, they can equally go higher, and eventually they will get justice. If nothing is being done, people should learn to resort to court, to explore
Those options.
the options of going to court so that their rights can be protected.
Preserved.
Nobody has a right to violate anybody, to abuse anybody on any reason whatsoever. If you have any grounds with anybody, you have the duty as a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to report to the relevant law
Authorities.
enforcement agencies, not to take laws into your hands.
You know, part of me wants to say thank you because you've given me some hope with all the tireless work that your organization, the Initiative for Equal Rights, and so many others are doing. And on the other hand, I'm like, wow, there is still so much to be done. But thank you for at least letting us see that there is movement, there is progress, and it's happening. And I think it's a good place to start from. So we have the good news and the bad news. The bad news is that there are so many stories, violations of people's human rights, simply because of their real or perceived orientation. We also have to deal with the fact that there are people who don't know where to go. There are people who don't have access to resources that can support them. The good news, however, is that there are people who are working tirelessly to change this story. We're getting the data, so we know that we will continue to track these numbers. It also means that there is hope, that where you have a situation where your human rights have been violated, there are people you can go to. It means that people can think about the consequences of their actions before they take the laws into their own hands. And I think it's a good idea for us to focus on the positives and encourage all the people who are working to change this narrative. Now, if you have an opinion to share, remember to check out the YouTube page Untold Facts on YouTube and give us your perspectives. Have your rights been violated, or do you have an organization that is working to defend the human rights of people who are dealing with these kinds of difficulties, again, because of their real or perceived orientation? Then please give us some information, drop a comment, drop a perspective, because we really want to keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. My name is Arit. Bye-bye.
We've had about 105 different things.
You know, you may come out to your friends and to your family, but you may still not have come out to yourself.
You don't hold the world an explanation for being who you are.
LGBT rights are human rights. Now, somebody called me and said, they said I look gay. I said, what does gay look like?
Ability to be human, access to care, access to housing, education.
There is an agenda.
You can continue to stay at your home battle. You do not need any passport.